the record button now, so you'll see that. So again, thank you for joining us for Bart Cothran's Practical Pink presentation today, April 12th at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Bart, you've got, I think, 46 or so years of experience in the dental industry. 28 of those, I believe, being in Florida, and working most recently with Jay Black at Winter Springs Dental Laboratory. So thank you, Jay, for letting us borrow Bart today. I know you keep him pretty busy there. Some of you may recognize Bart. He's done a number of presentations at the Southern States Expo, also known as the FDLA, and also lectured in other areas of the country as well. And Bart, I would say you're becoming pretty popular doing MiYO courses around the United States lately.
Yeah, I don't understand it either.
Just
no,
roll.
It's not difficult. It's not difficult to do when you have something good to work with.
Well, I appreciate
that. I really enjoy using it a lot.
Well, I think you're gonna show folks firsthand what you do with it. And my guess is people join today partially based on the title, not just who you are, but on the title, because a lot of people have heard about MiYO. They've heard that it's a different kind of a product. I know you're going to touch on that today, Bart. But a lot of people are looking for practical ways to achieve great aesthetics with pink and with teeth. And I know you're going to focus specifically on pink today based on the title. But we're excited to have you do that. So if you want to remember to make sure you're sharing your computer sound, so that works during your videos when you play them. I'm going to go ahead and get out of your way, Bart, and I'm going to let you take the floor because everybody's here to see you, not me. So thank you for joining us, and thank you very much, Bart.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. I think I do have the sound shared, but if not, just let me know. And I think that's all taken care of.
You got it.
Anyway, I understand the interest in pink because that's what really got our attention. We saw it being used, and like anything else, anything new, we're a little bit skeptical. We say, how can that be? How can that work? But then when I started seeing more and more cases, with the pink, then that really got us excited. Mainly because of time. When you're doing a lot of these hybrids, every time you fire porcelain, and it takes 2 or 3 firings of porcelain of ceramic to get it right. Then other, glaze firings and a lot of things. But when you could cut down the time in the oven and still maintain the aesthetics, well, you've got something there. So that's what we found. So this is sort of my tribute to MiYO Pink. So that's how we got into it. It just it got us excited from the beginning, and then it became more of a journey toward using it on the actual teeth and things like that. And I'm still becoming more proficient with that. But first of all, let's answer a couple of questions that people have. Why MiYO? Why did they develop MiYO? Well, I think you know as well as I do. I remember 40 years ago, more like 30, when digital was really coming in, I was totally against it. I layer porcelain. That's what I do for a living. That digital stuff is never going to work. Well, they didn't listen to me. No one asked my opinion, and now look where we are. We are fully immersed in digital, and we have embraced it at Winter Springs. Not only that, but the next move was the development in so many different type of zirconias and EMAX and things like that, lithium disilicates and whatnot. Now I think you're going to find that this next statement is true. We live in a monolithic world. Everything is monolithic. Some of the monolithic zirconias rival EMAX in aesthetics. So that's just the way it's going, whether we like it or not. That's the eventuality of things. And now everyone, even doctors, everyone is trying to do all on X's, all on 4s in-house, and those are all monolithic. Everything's monolithic. So that's why MiYO was developed, and it can't be any better. And like I said, I'm old timer, been at it for over 40 years. There's so many new things that come along, and we're skeptical. We have to let them be in the market for a while before we we even really given them any attention. Well, MiYO got our attention quick, and we've been using it ever since, and with great results. Very, very happy we're there. So this is another question that we receive all the time. Well, isn't MiYO just another staining glaze system? Well, you know, I've been accused of being an old Southern storyteller, so I'm going to tell you the story. In fact, I'm going to let you read it for yourself, and I think it'll help you to understand the relationship between conventional staining glaze and MiYO. Okay, it reads that the shopkeeper picks, some guy comes, you know, a lumberjack comes in to buy a chainsaw. The shopkeeper picks one out and says, this one could cut down 5 trees in 2 minutes. The lumberjack's impressed by this and buys the chainsaw. 2 days later, the lumberjack comes back to the shop with the chainsaw and asks for a refund. He said, this is a complete ripoff. I only managed to cut down 1 tree over the space of an hour. Well, the shopkeeper takes the chainsaw and turns it on, only for the lumberjack to suddenly jump in surprise. What's that noise? Well, what was the problem? Why didn't he get the most out of his chainsaw? Well, it's similar to the difference between stain and glaze and MiYO. You know, with stain and glaze, the aim is the same as MiYO. We're looking for an aesthetic restoration. But they are 2 different types of technology. Staining glaze is simply staining glaze. You layer it over the face of a crown with glaze and you make it look pretty as you can. MiYO, on the other hand, you need to look at that more like a porcelain layering system. That's the principles on which it was based when it was developed. And it works best that way when we look at enamel and we look at denim. Now, in the case of the lumberjack, why didn't the technology work? Well, he wasn't equipped with the knowledge, was he? He didn't have the training to use it. No one showed him how to turn it on. So if you want the most out of your MiYO, you have to crank it up. You have to get involved. You have to use it for the way it was developed, to its potential. And that's probably what's holding most folks back, is because they're just stuck in that mindset that it's a staining glaze and that's all it'll ever be. But it's so much more than that, as you're going to see. Okay, this is one of the fundamentals that you have to get in your head when you're dealing with ceramics, period. And it's the concept of contrast. Now, what makes this look 3-dimensional when it's only 2-dimensional? Well, it's because of contrast. You'll see the difference. You see the difference in light and dark in these areas. And what that does is it forms an illusion. It makes us look deep for the dark, and then the light seems to be closer to us. So it's an illusion, but we use that throughout every day when we're doing ceramics. And you'll see that's a reoccurring theme in this presentation today. So let's move on to the parts of the presentation. You'll find there are 3 main parts to this presentation. One is infiltration. And we ask, well, why do we do that? Why do we infiltrate zirconia when it's already multi-layer? Because most of you are already using multi-layer. Well, we'll explain that too. We're going to talk about MiYO color and MiYO structure. Now, each portion of this is pre-recorded in voiceover, so you're not going to be able to ask questions. Well, you can ask questions, you can chat them in, and then Kevin will ask after the end of that segment. So let's get started with that. So infiltration. Now, here's a picture that Don Cornell provided. This is one that has been correctly infiltrated or colored. Now, I'm going to explain a lot of these things you'll hear me say twice, maybe 3 times. Anyway, I infiltrate the gingival area with pink infiltrating liquid. I like if I'm going to end up with pink, might as well start with pink. You know, that it just seems to be a better foundation for the pink. Now, in certain other areas, such as you'll see here where I have A1, you know, in the embrasure or in the interdentally, I infiltrate those colors there. And I also infiltrate the emergence, or the, what do you call it? Where the root is, the root eminence. Infiltrate that with A3, A3.5 infiltrating liquid. So that, you know, because that's the area where over the root, the tissue is thin. You know, it's blanched. It's usually really stretched pretty tight, and you can actually see bone through there. You can actually see the root. So that simulates those areas. The reason for that is because a lot of times, especially when you green state finish these, for some reason, I don't even know why, but those areas, especially interproximally, they when you center them, they come out brighter, higher value. So what we do is we go ahead and infiltrate those, because you'll see in a few minutes, only takes a few minutes, and then you can and you have that color, you have that chroma coming up through the zirconia and through the MiYO material. All right, so let's quit talking about it and let's see it done.
Before you begin the infiltrating liquid, make sure your zirconia is clean and dry. Now this is an A shade, so I'm using A1. It's an A1 final. So I'm using the A stain around the gingival right at the free margin. The reason for this is if you don't, these areas become bright. You can cover them with MiYO later, but it just looks more natural coming from within, from the zirconia itself. You see I get it up in there interdentally in the embrasure. Now you can use a darker infiltrating liquid on the linguals if you wish, an A3 maybe in this case. And again, you want to get down by the margin. Okay, now this, you know your zirconium. This particular zirconium, it is multi-layer, but it's got a very gradual transition to the incisal. So I accentuate this one a little bit. You don't have to. Some of the incisals of the multi-layers are very intense. You don't need to do anything. You don't put quite as much on the cuspid because there's more chroma. It's more intense in color. Now with the pink, you need to use one of the brushes, a small brush. The MiYO kit has a perfect brush for this. You get in there interdentally for that interdental papilla. Make sure you are careful. Don't get pink on the teeth. It's called infiltrating liquid for a reason. It infiltrates the zirconia. It goes deep, and then you'll have to grind it out or you'll have to start over. So be careful. Take your time with this. You can put, you'll see this one, this restoration is finished with a mucogingival junction. It's got furcations, and it's got space between the roots. If you wish, you can put multi-layers there of pink, 3, 4, 5 layers if you want, to simulate natural vascularity, that as it appears naturally in the mouth. Okay, so you want to cover the entire gingival with pink. I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but make sure you get the intaglio also, because there's no material that covers that. Some people don't use pink at all. They would prefer a bone color or whatever. I prefer the pink. I'm going to end up with pink, so I might as well start with pink. Now here I'm using the A3, 3.5 right on the root eminence. As you know, that's the area where the tissue is thin. It's smooth because it's blanched, and the root shows through. So we simulate it that way. Now here we are drying for 10 minutes, and then it's ready to center. Now here I've glazed the teeth because I'm getting ready for the next segment of this video. But you can see where the infiltrating liquids have been applied in this case.
Okay. Now, this going back to the slide that that Don provided, this helps you to see a little bit better. You can see where the stain is. The A stains are interproximally, and also you can see where the root stain is here. This is the way it should appear after. You don't want it to be too dark. If it's too dark, and we're going to explain this too. If it's too dark, it will show through the MiYO. It will not look natural. So it has to be more subtle like this. And you can always accentuate it with MiYO material like copper or something like that later. Okay, now let's talk about MiYO color. Okay, now this is another slide. His pictures are much better than mine. This is from Don. Now you can see slightly where the root is coming through there in those areas that are circled. Okay. Okay, now this diagram is to show you where the darker material, where the contrasting pink is. This is the darker. In this case, I'm not sure what he used, but it's the lighter gingival pink is here on the where the free margin is, and down below that just a little bit, and then the darker is here in the festoons or the furcation or wherever you want to call this. So that's a principle that you need to keep in mind when you're doing pink, is the contrast. All right, so again, let's see it done.
Well, obviously this is a demonstration, but when you're doing gingival on one of the hybrid cases or mini hybrid or whatever, make sure you color map your the gingival so you know you use the right colors so they match, just like you would take a shade on a crown. Anyway, so we're demonstrating here with raspberry, hibiscus, midnight, and copper. Now, if you don't have a wide gingival area, if you have reduced vertical, well, of course, then you probably would not use the copper to simulate the root eminence. Make sure that, I'm not showing it here, but make sure that you mix the colors thoroughly. This is vital, very important that you mix them well. I like to use this palette because I put the jars right next to the color that I'm using, because otherwise I'll forget what's what. This way I know which is hibiscus, which is raspberry, and so forth. You'll notice I have a little bit of the InSync liquid down in the bottom right-hand corner of my tile. Do not use water. Use the liquid for cleaning your brush in between colors. If you use water, well, it'll cause these, the colors, which are glazes themselves, it'll cause them to separate, and you'll get little creases. All right, so I start with the darkest color, and go interdentally with that to simulate blood flow, the more vascular areas, which are in the interdental papilla and between the roots in those furcations. It comes out to be a sort of a long triangular shape in this case. And you take it all the way down to the bottom of the flange, the margin. So I go with one color at a time. For because of time consideration, I'm not showing the lingual at this time. But of course, we do the same thing there. Okay, make sure you bring it all the way down to the bottom of the flange, or that margin there. In fact, yeah, do like that. Kind of bring it over the lip, because a lot of times that area gets missed, and you'll have a bright area there. Now with the copper on the root eminence. It's important. I put that out first. I lay it on first, and then I blend as I go. And you'll see what I mean in a minute. It may seem a little bit intense, like too much copper, but you'll see as we blend it, it becomes less. Okay, now with the hibiscus, the lighter, and this is usually in the lighter areas, which is around the free margin, the unattached gingival. Okay, you see I'm blending now. Now the copper doesn't look quite as intense as it did. Okay, now clean your brush again, and you can go back with a little bit of the raspberry in the furcations and smooth that up. Now I'm going to do the veins, and I'm using crimson here. You can use vinyl. I learned something from Don Cornell the other day, though. If you mix a little bit of Fisher in with your crimson on your tile, it's a little bit easier to see after you put the texture on. You can see the veins through the texture. Just makes them a little bit more intense. I have done it since. I'm not doing it here, but I have done it since, and it does work very well. When you put your veins on, don't make straight lines. There's no straight lines in nature. Just like a branch formation, little branches is the way to apply the veins. Just kind of like lay it on top of the colors. Okay. Clean your brush. Now I'm gonna put a little midnight. Midnight just kind of intensifies the real vascular areas. Most of the blue, the midnight, is down by the bottom, the flange. Now this is the firing cycle that I use, but I've got 3 ovens. They all fire different. That one said 750. Usually it's 760, 770. You'll have to work that out for yourselves because, like I said, they're all different. So here's the final after it's fired, the color. We're ready for texture. Well,
Okay. Now, just something I need to mention at this time, and I wish I would have included it in that recording, is that the MiYO color, now that is where you get your color. Okay. So that's the colors that you need to use when you're mapping the gingival, if you're matching gingival. If you notice this, everything that we're doing here is like for a medium pink. That's the scheme that we're using, the colors that we're using to achieve a medium pink. Texture is on. I mean, the structure is. It does have some color in it, but it is for texture primarily. So you're going to get your color from the MiYO colors, that step that we just did. It's important to note too that we're starting off with a pink structure. We've infiltrated it pink. Now, we make the mistake because we've done ceramics for so long that we treat the colors like they're opaque. They are not opaque. In fact, if you skip some places, if you miss some places, it'll be okay when you cover it with structure because it's pink already. It's pink underneath. The problem comes if you try to cover it too much like you would with opaque, it's going to come out too dark. So you need to go lightly. You need to find that place that's in between, where you're just putting it on, but not too heavy, because that definitely will make it too dark. All right, so now let's go to texture. And the same thing, we're going to watch it done.
Okay, so let's apply texture. It's important to note at this point, though, that I've only fired this restoration once at this point. And that's usually what I do. I glaze and do my color all in one. Now we're going for a medium pink gingival here, which is pretty standard for like full arches. And that's pretty much what we always go with, light to medium pink. I'm only going to use 3 of the structure materials for gingival. I use Rouge, Frost, and Orchid. Rouge, of course, is the dark structure. Remember, we talked about the importance of contrast, so I need light structure also, and that will be in Orchid and Frost. Frost would be around the free margin, areas like that, or if you were making a frenum, then you would use it for that also. Okay, now I've put the structure out. I've mixed it thoroughly according to the instructions in the jar. Then I've only put out a small amount that I think I'm going to use. Okay, so I use the darkest structure in the high vascular areas, which would be interdentally and in the furcations. So I drag it down in a sort of a long triangular formation. You'll see as I apply it here. Something that's very important, especially when you have furcations involved, you have these troughs, you need to put the structure on in a uniform thickness. You need to make it thin. As Don says, you need to be able to see through it. That's how thin you want to make it. That's the purpose of structure is for texture and texture only. Okay, so here I'm putting it on fairly thin. You want to be able to see the veins and the effects that you've put in with the color. Now, if I was doing a big arch, a full arch, I probably would break it up into sections. I would do one section at a time like this and go through the entire process of texturing and everything. So let's just pretend that this is just a section of an arch. So I'm laying down the dark structure first. You see the only areas that don't have texture or structure at this point would be the root eminence and around the free margin, around the margin of the tooth, of the teeth. Again, apply it very thin. And I usually run a bead of the structure underneath the lip of the flange there to make sure that it's covered. Okay, now I'm going to go to the lighter structure, which is orchid, and this is for the root eminence. Sometimes I use a combination of spatula and brush to do this. Now you can use water with the structure material. So I keep a little bit of water on my tile, and when it becomes a little bit too stiff to manipulate, well then I just dab my brush in the water and then smooth the structure material. Now you're going to see here where I put it on kind of heavy and then I take it away and put it somewhere else. That's important. You just want to maintain the same thickness of the structure material everywhere. Okay, there I vibrated it just to make it smoother and help blend it a little bit. Okay, so I just clean my brush again. Now I'm going to another color. And do that in between the different structure materials that you use. Clean your brush because it applies a lot easier with a clean brush. All right, so I put the frost, which is the real high value pink, on the free margin. Okay, and then I blend it down. The real trick to this is just is getting the consistency that works for you, so that it doesn't slump. You can see I'm not having a problem with that here. Okay, and continually clean the teeth so you don't have structure fired on them. Okay, again, I vibrate it to make it nice and smooth. You should be able to see the veins and the colors that you put underneath at this point. If you don't, then it's too thick. Okay, so now I'm in the process of just blending everything. Okay, I dry it in the muffle for a little bit in order to be able to texture it. I sort of skipped a step. I'm going to go back to it here in a second. But you can use this fan brush. I'll use another brush in a few minutes to texture. Now, as my drill sergeant, as Don Cornell says, I have a heavy hand, so you really need to really apply very little pressure with the brush to achieve texture. Okay, now I'm going to go with glaze. It's a little bit thicker than I would normally use to glaze, and I'm going to go around the free margin with that because that's usually the area where it's very smooth. You don't really see any texture, so this really makes a nice junction between tissue and teeth. So you just run a bead right there on the free margin all the way around, and then blend it down, smooth it out. And it gives you that translucent pink that you have with the free margin also. Now I'm doing this in a production setting. So as you can see, it's relatively quick to do this. I keep it very simple. I use just 2 or 3 of the structure materials to achieve the medium pink. And if whatever color you need, that it doesn't take that many is the point I'm making. So you can achieve that with just 2 or 3 structures, and you can do it very quick, as a matter of fact. Okay, so dry it again. Now I'm going to go out with a different brush, the stippling brush that comes with the brush kit. And this one is still needs to be broke in a little bit more, needs to be flared out, but you just catch it with the edges of the bristles and to texture. Again, a very light touch. All right, now it's ready to fire. You'll see I'm going to be changing my program. With this Ivoclar oven, 20 minutes for it sort of combines closing and the warm up all in one function. So it's 20 minutes works for my oven. I find that if with structure, that if I don't spend 20 minutes doing that, well then I'm going to get little pits. It's too quick. Now here's the beauty of MiYO. When you're finished using the material, put it back in the jar.
Okay, so that's primarily, that's a pretty quick buildup. This is also another case. This is just the structure prior to firing, and you can see toward the bottom, toward that margin, you can see a little bit of the veins and whatnot showing through. So that's about the thickness that you want. Again, remember, that's the way it's designed. It's not like porcelain where you can fill a lot of voids with it. It's not designed for that. It's made to be used in very thin layers. Okay, so that's that case that we started out with. That's that. This is all MiYO all the way. Okay, this is like frost for the frenum ligament and things like that, and over the root eminence and whatnot. So you can see, and these are all the MiYO colors, to achieve fracture lines and things like that. Okay, now this is a case that shows the practicality of MiYO Pink in particular, and just monolithic restorations in general. So let's go through this real quick. And this is one that I think that we've shown before, or we discussed it on the Jensen site at some time in the past. All right, this was a doctor, and this was the initial proposal. It was to put the implants in the anterior area, and he was going to just do a bridge. It was just very straightforward, a simple 4-unit bridge, and those would be, the laterals would be the abutments. Well, as you'll see, it didn't work out that way. Okay, so this is what he ended up with. This is the placement of the implants, and as you can see, there are too far away from the canines, so it didn't work out that way. The placement was just off for whatever reason, and as you know, it seems like it's never perfect. All right, this is just another view of where they ended up. He used true abutments to try to overcome some of it, but it just didn't work that well. All right, so now you can see the proposal of where the prosthesis would be, and as you can see, it's way out facially, and I think you'll see that even clearer in a minute or two. All right, there it is. Now if you really were going to try to layer porcelain on that would be out there another a millimeter probably, or maybe more, especially on the gingival. You can't see it very clearly there, but it's really wrapped in order to keep it from being over contoured. All right, there it is. Now, he's the clinician. We are not. He's done cases similar to this, these mini hybrids. Now on the facial, you can overlap that by about 2.5 millimeters. And that's what we ended up doing. Let me see if the next slide shows. Okay, there's the lingual. The lingual we brought up to right at the implant abutments, so that you could put a floss threader under there, and you can clean it, or with some irrigation device or whatever the doctor suggested, and it's totally retrievable. So push comes to shove, and you can always do that. All right, so here's the actual mouth with the healing abutments in. So everything looks good. It's sad that the placement wasn't perfect. All right, this is what we ended up with. This is totally monolithic, and it's all MiYO. I use a multi-layer. We used a Zircon HTML multi-layer Zirconia for this case. Okay, there is a better picture of what we ended up with. The pink portion of this, that when you get into, if you were to get a sagittal view of this, if you were just to cut it right down the middle and look at it, you're talking a thickness of MiYO Pink material like 0.1, 0.2 millimeters. It's ridiculous. It's to look that good and be that thin. That's why it works so well in this case, because there is no room for porcelain. neither on the teeth or the gingival. So that was it was just a perfect outcome for an imperfect case. All right, now this whole lower is just another case that we did with MiYO Pink. And that's it in the mouth. Totally monolithic with just MiYO Pink. All right, now this is what brought us to the, like the old saying, it brought us to the dance. This is what got us going to start with, because like I mentioned, our intention was to be able to use a staining glaze system that would allow us to match single anterior crowns better. But as you can see, it just opened the door up for so much more. But I'm just going to show you some crowns that we did with MiYO. And the success that we had just has snowballed. It's really made us appreciate this system. Okay, here's this was just showing a little bit of the white, the snow, that color that we use. It's the 3 anteriors. It's let's see, number 7 to 9. Okay, these the crowns in this case are number 8 and 9, and that's all halo. And I mean, it took a little time, but nothing like it would if we were stratifying porcelain. So it's all monolithic, and it worked out. It matched pretty good. Okay, now this one is coming from that direction. I don't know if that helps at all. It's number 7 is the crown, and again, it was just, what it amounted to was just throwing a bunch of colors on it and seeing what happened. And in this case, it worked out really well. Okay, this is minimal cutback. You can see minimal cutback, and I'm starting to get to feel pretty proficient with the MiYO enamel, the high fusion. Now, I used it in this case. This is 7 to 10, and just minimally cut back on the incisal, and it worked out. It worked out pretty well. Everybody was happy. Okay, and this is 8 and 9. These are totally monolithic, and it's just nothing but a little bit of A stain at the gingival and some smoke on the incisal, 1/3 to 1/2. It matched well. And that's it, folks. That's all I've got. So if you have any questions, I'm sure that our master of ceremonies can ask them, and we'll try to answer them.
Oh, thank you very, very much, Bart. I think I speak for everybody when I say we appreciate you sharing your knowledge and your insights. And I do think you take obviously a practical approach for sure. So there were a number of questions that came in along the way. So let me ask one of the first ones. If you want to go back to that, your tray, well, actually, you might not be able to because it was in the video, right? Unless you have a still shot of it.
Yeah,
Somebody asked.
It would be in the video. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay. Somebody asked, where did you get that tray?
A friend of mine, we just made it. A friend of mine here in town made it, and I've got a white one and a black one, depending on the mood I'm in, and that's what I use. And I'll take any kind of help I can get to stay organized, because I don't know how many times I've mixed porcelains, and I've got so many different systems going on my bench at one time that it's mandatory for me. I can't get away from having things just laid out perfect, so I know where to go, with it.
Right. So handmade. It almost looks like it was 3D printed, maybe, or something. I don't know.
Maybe. If anybody wants to shoot me a text, I can tell you how to get one. It's not a,
okay.
It's not a big deal.
Yeah, that's people are always looking for stuff,
Sure.
Stuff like that. So this one's not related to pink, but do you want to go to that picture? You have 2 of it on your title slide, but also on you had it towards the end with the bridge. You know where it is. Yep. Yes, here. So person says on your title slide, how did you achieve the crack line on number 9?
Just snow, snow and a little fissure. The trick to making them look real is never make them straight. You know, I learned that a long time ago from another friend of mine from Kentucky. He showed me, and you can, with this material, the viscosity, I don't know what the actual word for the viscosity or the texture of the material is such that you can actually lay the fracture line over another material and give it even more reality, which I did with I think number 9.
Okay.
So that's just snow and fissure. That's all.
And what's as we're looking at it, what's to the right of it? That's fissure as well, the darker color, because that provides a lot of contrast, right?
No, it's not. It's I think I just ran some stain up there, just right up that developmental groove.
Yep. Floating color on color is definitely one of the unique attributes of MiYO for sure. And
I forgot, I don't mention that enough, but you don't want, it's not like, and man, it's like Don, I mean, I don't know how many times he told me, you don't brush it like a paintbrush. You put this material on and then you push it around. You lay it on, and to be able to achieve that, you have to lay it on top. You don't touch the crown with it, and then drag it like you're painting the wall in a house. You put it on there and then drag it where you want it. You put it on top of another, like on top of the glaze, and then drag it around where you want it. And that's why you can make nice squiggly reality in the fracture.
Gotcha. And the brush doesn't actually, in a lot of cases, even touch the substructure underneath it, right?
That's what I meant. Yeah, that's exactly what I meant. You kind of like drag it over the top of the other materials, like the glaze material or other colors that you have on place.
And that's MiYO isn't difficult, but it's a little different, and it's there. You've got some muscle memory.
Well, that's why I started out with that little story about the lumberjack, because you can give somebody a kit of MiYO and say, here, use it. But if you never show them how to use it, like what we're doing here today, if you don't show them how to use it, you can't expect them to get good results. Or work it to its potential anyway.
Sure. No, that's fair. And I see, which is great, some questions coming in online. I'll do the ones that I took down first. When you add color to pre-shaded zirconia, do you ever get unexpected results? So I think they're talking about your infiltration step.
No, I don't. No, I mean we've done it enough. And I use a small brush. I don't use a big. I don't put a lot of it. It doesn't take much. I think if you saw my video, I'm just using a very small brush, almost the smallest brush that they make, and I'm not putting layers of color on. I just put it on there and leave it. Now, the only one that I do layer some pink on, depending on how much pink I want, is the pink.
Okay, so I have heard of some people trying to add coloring liquid to green state zirconia that's already pre-shaded, and the color doesn't come out the way they expected, right? So some have even gotten like a violet color or something like.
I've never. Okay. I use Zircon HTML all the time, and I never get that. Never have a problem with that.
Okay, good. While on the topic of infiltration, how do you dry your zirconia liquids?
10 minutes in I showed it, and I really should have some nice slides so I can go back to them. But we have a heat lamp in a box, and and we leave it in there for at least 10 minutes. Okay.
William asks, what brand of, again, staying on the infiltration topic, what brand of liquid do you use to paint the teeth in the interproximal areas?
I use Origin.
Okay.
And I've used them all. I've used them all, and all very similar, but that's just the one that I use, especially for the pink. Their pink is probably better than most.
Okay. Brian, not a question, but a comment. Brian, love the way that structure makes it pop. I know you've had some aha moments with structure over the last probably 2 or 3 months where it kind of finally clicked for you. And I know you like to share that with other technicians because you want them to have that that aha moment too, huh?
The thing that they need to remember is it's a learning curve. Those who layer ceramic certainly did not learn that overnight. You know, get out of your mind that it is a staining glaze system. You know, this takes a little bit of learning. One of the things that I had to be really patient with was the use or finding out just how to fire my structure. I was getting impatient because I was getting little pits and things. But I did a 4-unit anterior case today, lateral to lateral, and I cut it back, and I used quite a bit of the enamel. You know, very thin layer, but a lot of it over the whole face of the crown, and I didn't get one pit. You know, it's just a matter of learning how to do it. You know, and getting it to where it works for you.
Sure. Okay. Kevin, not this Kevin, another Kevin. Good name though. Is MiYO low temp 750? Question mark. If I need to repair porcelain or glaze at a higher temperature, say 900, will it cause the MiYO to slump or lose its texture?
Yes. Yeah. The MiYO Pink, those are made to be fired at 720. You know. Yeah, you would have to start over on that. The only structure material that is high temp, they do have a high temp enamel and window, and those you can fire a lot higher. Now the colors they're stable at pretty much any temperature. The structure is not. The structure is made for 720.
So, you know, and Kevin responded again here, and I would say, if you did the case with MiYO, you know, you can fire the case again and add color to it, even if you put structure on it. You can refire that case. I'm not sure why you'd need to go to 900, which you state, because like Bart said, most furnaces with MiYO, and it really depends on the furnace and how much mass you have, but 720 to really, I'd say probably 760 is a range, you know, where MiYO fires pretty comfortably.
I've had to do that in the past, but then I end up doing another like glaze bake at a low temperature. And since the structure is a glaze, it self glazes, I put it on very, very thin in that stage or in that cycle and texture it, and I'm done.
Okay. So he added to that, and he says, what do you do if your case comes back for repair? What do you use? And I think that's safe to say. If you need to adjust something, you can add more of that same MiYO material that you did. Maybe if he fired it and lost some texture, Bart, do you ever grind that back in, you know, with an instrument? And then
I stay away from that.
Okay.
I don't like to use any rotary tools on my on my cases if I don't have to at all.
Okay.
It's like I said, I will go back, and it's almost like just reglazing.
Okay. Yeah. Reglazing.
Just put the structure back in certain areas and touch it with a texture brush and glaze it.
Gotcha. Okay. Yep. That's fair. Okay. So, do you ever have to deal with pulling or tearing?
I did, and that's kind of what I was trying to indicate about getting your oven right, making the closing temperature and the heat up and the closing temperature, getting that right. Mine takes about 20 minutes to do that.
Okay.
And before that, I would get pits and I would get tearing. Yeah, and if you introduce water into the color cycle, you'll get tearing at that stage sometimes.
Okay.
So just take water out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Except for maybe wetting the brush or cleaning the structure off it, like you said, right? Kind of, you'll use it to introduce a little bit of moisture to structure when you're moving it around.
Yeah. That's part of just getting your I don't know what you call it, your protocol down, you know?
Yeah.
Liquid for colors and water for structure.
Okay. Okay. Good. And lots of good questions. I'm coming, and I know it's 3:57. I think we're going to land right perfectly at 4 o'clock. Another question: how do you prepare the surface of your restoration before coloring. I think before they mean before MiYO coloring, after you've sintered it. What do you do to the surface of your zirconia?
Now, are they talking about green state finishing, or are they just talking about getting ready to actually to center it?
After sintering, so not green
After
state,
center.
but after.
Very,
Yeah.
very, very, very light sandblast.
Okay.
Very light.
That's
Like when they talk about 1 bar, most folks don't even know what 1 bar means, as far as pressure. So what I do is I hold the pencil, I hold it at least 6 inches away from the restoration and just lightly, just blast it inside and out. I don't want to take any chances of ruining, especially the channels for the seats for the implants, and things like that. You can really mess them up. So I just clean it. That's mainly all you have to do.
And that's, MiYO, maybe not everybody knows, but stands for make it your own. And I think, there are certain techniques or steps you might take, that you like, that you feel might make a difference. Some people abrade, some people don't, right? One of the things that's pretty amazing, I think, with MiYO is that it doesn't repel when you place it on the sintered zirconia. It doesn't kind of ball up or bead up like water on a waxed car. It kind of stays where you put it, which is kind of surprising, right?
Yeah, I've had nothing but good results. I'm very happy with it. It's like I said, I'm an old technician. I'm skeptical of everything. As far as I'm concerned, nothing works until it works. So MiYO has been a real surprise and pleasure.
Awesome, and thank you for that. Last question: how did you color both teeth and tissue in one firing? Because you mentioned that somebody asked that as well.
I'm not sure what that. Are they asking about infiltrating color, or are they talking? They're talking about a MiYO color.
They're talking about MiYO. I think you did your tissue and your teeth, and
I did them in 2 separate stages because I didn't have my video down right. But you can do it all in one shot. It's very easy. It's just a matter of using, like if you're going to use, let's say if you're going to use, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but if you're going to use a color, then use it where like you would normally use it, interproximally, use it here. You can do a lot of these fractures. You can do all that. You glaze and do everything at one time. Put all your pink colors in and then fire at once, because they all fire the same.
Gotcha. Okay. Another comment from another Kevin, which is, you're surrounded by Kevins. Said, great job, great presentation, and thank you. So I will resound that comment. I think, Bart, we really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day, and everybody that joined us, thank you for taking the time out of your busy day. We hope that Bart's practical pink approach helped maybe answer some questions that you had, or give you some inspiration. Bart, we've kind of titled this series MiYO Connects. I know it's not just connecting people, but it's connecting passion and experience and all sorts of fun things. And it's a terrific journey we're on, and we're just grateful that all of you are on it with us. So thank you for presenting today, Bart, and thank you all for joining us today as well. Bart, is there a way that if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, is there a way that they could do that?
Yeah, and I really should have a slide on here, but you'll just have to try to write this down the best you can.
I'll type it in the chat.
Okay. All right. I could have done that too. Technology is so wonderful. Bartillery, BARTILLARY at Yahoo.
At yahoo.com. Okay, so I just shared it with everybody. Bart, is that really your full name, Bartillery?
No, that was like my grandfather's name back in the war of Northern Naked Aggression. That was like an old family name. No, but it went from Bartillery to Bartow to just Bart.
Interesting.
They got tired.
Gotcha. Well, maybe it's easier to remember because it stands out. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We will provide you with a link to this recording after, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks again, Bart.
All right. Thanks for having me. Thanks, everybody.
Take care. Bye.